That brings to a conclusion. I really thank the audience for being so attentive and for coming and taking the time. And now we'll have a question answer, and then we will have closing remarks. Yes, please. So we will, in the interest of time, I'll come back to your question, just Fazana's question. Is there anything left from?
Actually, I wanted to add a small detail to it because, with all due respect, Professor Reza didn't really answer my question. My question was that, you know, the Abbasid Caliphate and the Umayyad Caliphate coexisted, and that in itself, to me, nullifies this idea that there was ever a caliphate, because the caliphate signifies unity of the ummah, and the fact that they were concurrent means that there was no caliphate. A caliphate has to be one. It has to be, it doesn't allow for other Islamic polities to exist side by side. So that really is my question.
Okay, I think what your question really brings to the forefront is that there are multiple interpretations of what a caliphate is. So there is one interpretation that you've just, so eloquently presented, that a caliphate has to have one, has to unite everybody, every single Muslim. There are other visions and other interpretations of what a caliphate is, that it does not have to include every single Muslim out there. It can just be a large body of Muslims, as in the case of the Abbasid Caliphate, which had also the Fatimid Caliphate and in Egypt, and the Umayyad Caliphate in Spain concurrent with it. So at a certain point in time, there were 3 concurrent caliphates. You're right about that.
Can I ask you a question? Because of the story about the Queen of Sheba, and
yes.
It's a wonderful story, do you envision a female caliph?
Yes.
Do I envision a female caliph?
Absolutely.
I've written actually quite. I've published quite recently an article in both Arabic and English, which I presented in Egypt a couple of years ago in a feminist gathering, showing why it's so important to have female political figures and religious leadership and political leadership positions. So I don't know if I would call this political leader a caliph or not. That seems to be a contested term. So, but certainly, I think many women today are pushing very strongly for a more evident political voice.
Sure. And thank you very much for coming, Professor Reza, because that balanced our panel. We had at least one female speaker. Thank you very much. Your question.
To Sister Nida. Thank you very much for a very enlightening perspective. I have travelled quite extensively around the Middle East, and I think I have a reasonably good feeling of the general sentiment. I've spoken with many different organisations, including Hizb ut-Tahrir, Ikhwan al-Muslimin. This year only I was in Palestine, and I spoke with members of Hizb ut-Tahrir about their notion or quest for a unifying Khilafah. My question to you is that what appears to be happening now is that there is polarization in terms of the destiny of Muslims, their political destiny. One is, as you mentioned, some form of democratic, constitutional way forward, and another one is where there is a quest for some sort of a caliphate system outside of that realm. My question is, when you say that there is la ikraha fid-din, that there's no compulsion in the religion, and you said that this is your reading and this is your interpretation of that, I would beg to say that that is quite problematic, considering the historical backdrop of how Prophet Muhammad, the caliphs, the Muslim political figures of the past actually did implement law and order, and it was done in a coercive sense. It was done and implemented in real terms. So I find that difficult to understand. The second question, with regards to the Queen of Sheba, is although I have no problem with, and I think it's very important that women participate in all levels of political life. How do you understand this from Sharia Muqablana, that this is law to do with Prophet prophets or people that was before the advent of the Sharia as we know it from Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So those two questions.
Okay. Going to the question of the political, the reality. So my argument is that at the time of the Prophet and in the first centuries of Islam, what gave that particular political system, in my reading of it, its logical legitimization and justification, was that Shura was actually present. So people consulted together. People did not share the same opinions. Ahmad ibn Hanbal did not share the same opinions as Abu Hanifa, as Shafi'i, as different schools of thought. There was difference there. People did actually consult and dialogue together. Today, when we look back and take from the ancients and try and implement what they left us, there's no shura involved. You see? So for me, the crucial matter is this notion of consultating. This is what legitimizes any law that gets implemented in the state. What was your second question?
The second question was about Sharia min qablina.
Oh, yes. Yes. I've gone over the Quran and the Hadith and the various different usul in that article that I published on this particular issue. There is a whole difference of opinion going on since the first century of Islam up to today on the relationship of the Quran to the Hadith. When you have a disagreement between the two, do you take the Quran or do you take the Hadith? In the Shia tradition, in theory, it is very clear you take the Hadith. You take the Quran, you do not take the Hadith. In the Sunni interpretations of things, you have principles such as as-sunnah qadiyya ala al-Quran wa nasikha lah. The Sunnah is a judge over the Quran and abrogates it. That's one way of expressing it. So things are more or less murky within the Sunni tradition. It isn't absolutely clear when there is a contradiction. Do we take the Quran or do we take the Hadith?
Sure.
So in this particular, I'll email you my article if you want. So anyway, to cut things short, again, what I'm arguing that this is not Sharia man qablina. This is actually God's intent for Muslims today, based on different arguments.
Thank you. Very good question. I have three more questions, but Imam Sahib would like to add to your answer.
Okay. I think this takes me back to my Quran class in U of T. I remember what we would do is the professor would write the verse on the board, and we were like first year university students, just fresh out of high school, and he would go one by one. What do you think it means? What do you think it means? What do you think it means? And it's so amazing. It was so appalling in a way too, because this was an intellectual exercise over something that was very, very sacred and very important. In the end, of course, predictably, we'd have like 40 different interpretations of one verse. And everybody, whoever could brainstorm most freely, would go on and speak about, oh, this is talking about this is talking about that. And it was just amazing to me. The reason, and with utmost deference to Ms. Rada, as a former classmate and a presenter, I would like to say that, Ms. Rada, how do you reconcile, when you mentioned 364, Surah Al-Imran 364, وَلَا نَتَّخِذُ بَعْضُنَا بَعْضًا أَرْبَابًا مِنْ دُونِ اللَّهِ. We will not take them, arbab, as leaders against God, other than God. This doesn't mean that there is not specialization within Islamic sciences. I personally would not even go into Islamic philosophy because I'm not a specialist in it. There needs to be a certain training done. This seems like decontextualization of the verses. The Quran repeatedly says, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask those who are أهل الذِّكْر. Az-zikr is the Quran, the people of the Quran. Ask them. Similarly, if you say La ikraha fid din, there's no compulsion in religion, all of a sudden we've just thrown away hundreds of verses that actually are very coercive. What do we pick and choose what we like? And then again, if that's the policy, then it should be made clear. Similarly, if we say amruhum shura bainahum, that their every matter is by consultation, why not look at the verse before this verse that says, who are you going to consult? الَّذِينَ يَجْتَنِبُونَ كَبَائِرَ الْإِثْمِ وَالْفَوَاحِشِ. Those who stay away from the grievous of sins. Those are the people of Shura. You don't just grab anybody off the street and say, okay, what's your opinion on this? Similarly, on Queen of Sheba, I mean, she went against the Shura. You know, the people were ready for war. They said, نَحْنُ أُولُو قُوَّةٍ. This is in the 33rd verse. نَحْنُ أُولُو قُوَّةٍ وَبَأْسٍ شَدِيدٍ. We are a very... وَأُولُو بَأْسٍ شَدِيدٍ. We are a very fighting people, so up to you, give us the command. She went against that.
Yes.
So this is not about Sharia before, because she was not on Sharia at all, and look at her as a model would be somewhat displaced. So I would like Ms. Rida to actually answer, how do we decontextualize the verses and just come up with our own interpretations, and how is that legitimate from the Quran and Sunnah?
Thank you very much, ma'am. I do not want to make it a debate, but briefly your question, and then the next three people who are going to ask questions, please be 10-15 seconds. Phrase it in 10 or 15 seconds because of lack of time. Okay. Sorry, we have a deadline, so sorry about that.
So the Quran is my area of specialization. That's what I did my PhD on. That's what I specialize on. I wrote my PhD dissertation on Surah Al-Baqarah. And certainly the question of methodology, you know, classical methodology and modern methodology took up a large part of my thesis. So I can't, you know, very well go through all of that in a 15 or a half-hour presentation.
So we can agree to...
So let me, you know, very briefly explain traditional hermeneutics and how they apply to my particular interpretations. According to Ibn Taymiyyah, there are 4 epistemological categories when it comes to Quran interpretation. The first is tafsir al-Quran bil-Quran, meaning interpreting the Quran by means of the Quran. The second is by means of the Hadith. The third is by means of the sayings of the Sahaba, and the fourth is the Tabi'een, meaning the immediate successors of the Prophet Muhammad. So this is the particular methodology that I followed in my interpretation of these particular verses. The word Rabb in the Quran and in the Hadith is explained in this way. There's a hadith, very famous hadith, you'll find it in Tafsir ibn Kathir and many other famous tafsirs. You will not find it in Tabari, but you'll find it in many others, in which Adi ibn Hatim al-Ta'i, who was a very famous Sahabi, a companion of the Prophet, he came to him when the Prophet was reciting a certain verse from Surah At-Tawbah. And Adi was a Christian in pre-Islamic times, and he came to the Prophet and he told him, we Christians meaning, we did not take up our priests and our rabbis or worship them. We did not worship them in any way. And the Prophet's response to him, as documented in our classical sources, was, you let them make what is halal haram and what is haram halal, and you followed them in this, so this is your worship of them. So again, this is the particular methodology that I followed. So it is not just, haphazardly my opinion. I am very well qualified to do that.
Thank you very much. We will leave that debate. A few seconds, please, because we have 3-4 more questions.
Okay, first of all, very short. Thank you, organizers. Thank you, speakers. Okay. Now, my question and my compliment is to Mr. Shahryar. In his analysis of the development of Muslim history in terms of Caliphate, Malukiya, Jabr, and then again Caliphate, that cycle was mostly based on Hadith. I will be very happy if he will give references from Quran too. My question is that Mr. Shahryar, you talked about collective Muslim consciousness, and it seems as if also in this collective consciousness there is a hope of a global caliphate. In this context, how you define the broadening cleavage between different Muslim sects?
Can I take only 2 seconds before we answer? As a student of psychology, I can tell you, in the whole psychology, there is no term as collective consciousness. There is something unconsciousness, but there is no consciousness.
Correct. So Imam Shahryar will address collective consciousness, please.
Okay, non-psychologically speaking, about the collective consciousness, I said that basically there is, the reason why I believe there will be a return of one rule, which not everybody will be happy with, of course, But there will be a one global rule one day. If European Union can have a parliament and one president for that parliament, if America can get together, I mean, from 13 colonies it went all over, and the world is going towards globalization. The trend is that indeed one day it seems as if the trend continues, the global consciousness, the Muslim consciousness will evolve. This is again this is not primarily my reason for believing in a return of caliphate. The primary reason for my belief in return of the caliphate is of course the hadith, and not just one. There are like too many to quote. This is just a secondary reason.
No, but my question was that how do you define in this context the broadening cleavage between different sects?
Excuse me.
Broadening cleavage, the different sects are fighting with each other. I don't see them coming near and hugging each other.
Yes, madam. Yes, I think that the reason, this is a very good question, because you have in the Muslim world, if you look at it, it's 85% Sunni, and even though it is not all at the same understanding, but at least the mainstream Sunni world has one idea of caliphate. This is the caliphate of the Rashidun, the Rashidun caliphs. They idealize that. You have 15% or say about 10 or so percent of the Shia percentage, and they have the concept of imamat, right, and the return of the imam. Then you have maybe like few percentage of others who have their own khalifas or their own, I mean ISIS is one of them. But anyways, the point here is that I believe that one time, one day, I don't know how they will come under one umbrella, but I think once the situation is critical enough, people will find ways, just like they did before. In 2 days, the majority of the Sahaba decided to do bay'ah to Abu Bakr in 2 days. Similarly, that can happen in the future. It's not impossible for me.
Thank you very, very much. As to prove a sign of the collective consciousness, that is emerging is me in front of you. What is a computer guy doing here trying to hold a session on the caliphate, So there is an emerging consciousness that we should address these issues, in our own way, So me being here is, I don't know whether that is the right term or not, but there is something going on. Let's put it this way. Very brief, sir, 10-15 seconds.
Okay. My name is Mohammad Tufail Shah, and my question is for Munir Sahab. In his lecture, he has told that after the demise of last messenger, the Muslim had been fighting for the powers to become caliphate. I think this statement and also another statement about Jang-e-Jumal, he has told the fight between Hazrat Ali and Aisha.
What's the
I
question?
think it is the bundle of lies, because that does not relate to the Quranic verse Ashidda'u lil kuffar or Ruhamaa'u bainahum. Could you please elaborate?
I would not. Yeah, I think he will not answer a question that is what will ask. Okay. Because we have a certain decorum that we have to follow.
No, it's okay. I very passionately offered my sources. You can read them and you can deny them. That's your choice.
Yeah.
And I chose the sources which are totally accepted by the Orthodox Sunni Muslims all around, including the most conservative ones. Just it's your choice to call them lies or don't lie. That's your choice.
That's fine. No, that's fine. No, sir. Sir, thank you. Sir, thank you. We have very little time. Sir, they don't debate. They don't debate. They ask a question, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. We have very little time and a lot of questions. We will continue discussing this on the forum, on the website of the event. There is a remark section. Go home, log on, and write your question there. We will be discussing this for the next year.
Is it possible?
Yes.
Yeah.
My name is Muhammad Idris Khan, and this question is actually for Imam Shahryar Sahab. The question is, most of speakers, they insist and they, you can say, debate that there is no caliphate, no khilafat is here. But there is one group which is also claim that they are Muslims, they are called Ahmadis. They claim that caliphate, khilafat is still continuing. And when their Khalifa goes to European Union conference and they welcome him and with these words, oh Khalifatul Muslimin, welcome. So what about that group? But their Khilafat is not accepted from any other group of Muslims. So just kindly.
Yeah, before Imam Sahib answered, I would just like to correct it a little bit. That European conference, he was not actually invited. They rented a room where they held that conference. You know, they rented a room and they called him Khalifa of Islam. It was not the European Parliament who called him Khalifa of Islam. Sorry.
Yeah, the principle of Khilafah is legitimacy of Khilafah, and that's the first most principle. La khilafata illa an mashwaratin. So there has to be, in this I agree with Ms. Reda, that there is a mashwara. Everyone has to. Otherwise, principally, the Ahmadiyya Khilafah is just like ISIS Khilafah. Anybody can get together in the corner and appoint somebody, and it won't have global legitimacy for all the Muslims. So no, we don't recognize. They can call themselves Khalifa. We don't recognize that.
Okay, a brief question from Mr. Khan Sahib. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
With due apology to everyone, ये सवाल शेख साहब के लिए। शेख साहब, अगर कोई इंसान जिंदगी के हर पहलू में क्रिश्चियनिटी का डिपेंडेंट हो, तो क्या खलीफा के डेफिनेशन उसके पर फिट बैठती है?
ये तो मैं अपनी पहली बात में कह चुका हूँ कि
the question in English is, if somebody defends Christianity 24/7, can he be a Khalifa?
ये इफ्तिखार साहब, इसका ये बात मैं अपने स्पीच में कह चुका हूँ कि आज की दुनिया को ये खिलाफत या इस किस्म का खलीफा यकीनन बहुत अच्छा लगता है, जो अपनी सर्वाइवल और उनकी खुशी के लिए किसी भी कुरानिक लॉ को या शरिया लॉ को उसके मुताबिक ढाल दे, बजाय इसके कि वो कहा जाए जो एग्जैक्टली डिमांड है।
So translation is that anyone can twist Quranic logic and facts to their own whims and fancies and try to justify their own situation. Thank you.
For the happiness,
for their own happiness. Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, me.
Yeah. Okay. Question from whom?
This is for Dr. Reda. There are two types of commandments in Quran, as I understand, and pardon my ignorance, I'm not very scholarly there. One is that states principles, and I can understand principles can be interpreted, reinterpreted. My question, those laws which are absolutely clear and there is no ambiguity, such as family law, inheritance and so forth, how would you get to implement those laws in democracy unless you find a way to abrogate those verses?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch it. How do you implement the laws, like the hudud laws, for example, in a democracy? Well, there's a lot that's been written on the hudud laws by scholars of Sharia.
Inheritance, I mean.
Inheritance, again, inheritance isn't as clear as the hudud. Inheritance is not well interpreted at all. We enter again into the whole problem of, do we privilege the hadith or do we privilege the Quran? And certainly in the Sunni tradition we have privilege over the Quran when it comes to inheritance laws. So inheritance laws is not very clear, but the hudud is a lot clearer. So when it comes to the hudud laws, I think that in order to implement them, the head of state cannot just go and say, oh, I'm going to implement them. It has to be based on shura. It has to be based on what is the will of the people upon whom these laws are going to be implemented. So that is the decisive factor. If the people agree to that, then fine and good. During the reign of Umar ibn al-Khattab, he did not implement the hudud in a certain year because it wasn't suitable for the times at that point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. We have actually run out of questions. Last question, and no, you have had your chance. So last question, and then I will just close it out.
My question is to Imam Sharia. You have mentioned the global Khilafah to be in the future. Would you please give any support from the Quran about that?
Okay. Basically, there is nowhere in the Quran directly where it is said that Khilafah will go all over the world. However, there is a process that was set forth with the coming of the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah As-Saff, هُوَ الَّذِي أَرْسَلَ رَسُولَهُ بِالْهُدَى وَدِينِ الْحَقِّ لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ. And the next one it says that this is the deen Allah will make complete. وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْكَافِرُونَ. That how much they will like. So the logical end or the divine will seems to be, if you read the Quran, that this dunya, this deen is not just for Arabia or for a certain part of the world, but it is actually for entire mankind. This is why when the Quran addresses, it says, Ya ayyuhan nas, he's Rabbul Alameen, who sent Rahmat al-Alameen with Zikrul lil-Alameen. So this is a very universal message, not just for the Arabs. So certainly in the Quran, you can certainly get that idea that this Khilafah is one day, we would like to see that it is, but of course if you go to the authentic verses, the authentic sayings of the Prophet ﷺ, it becomes all the more clear that this will happen one day. Again, I mean, if somebody says, it's, if you want to frame it as a multiple choice, Quran versus Hadith, this is a different topic, but we tend to see everything together, Hadith explaining the Quran. Just like the Quran says, لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ مَا نُزِّلَ إِلَيْهِمْ, so that you, O Prophet, may explain what has been revealed to you towards them. So we believe that this Khilafah will come, again, not clearly given, but ultimately it will be in the light of the sayings of
Jazakallah, Imam Sahib. That brings us to a close. If you have any questions, the speakers will stick around. If they stick around, ask them. If not, now we are done. Sorry, I have to, because the building will close in 5 minutes. So in just 1 minute, I will request the volunteers. I will request the volunteers to start packing, and I would like to thank everybody for being a wonderful audience. And we will see you inshallah next year, May or June time frame for our next conference. Assalamu alaikum, jazakallah.